What is happening, everybody? Happy Saturday morning, and thanks for checking out this edition of Pucks from the Pine Tree Pod. So happy you decided to join me here this morning. We have got a lot to talk about, but before we do, please go hit that like button down below, hit that subscribe button down below. Absolutely helps the channel out big time. So, absolutely appreciate that. Uh, Big congratulations, of course, to the Florida Panthers, now two-time Stanley Cup champions. Just a masterclass, guys, a masterclass in how you neutralize your opponent. Think about what they just did against Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl for a second straight year. Man, those last two games were not competitive at all, and that's full value to the Panthers for sure. I raved about Gustav Forsling earlier on, but go back and watch how this guy played against McDavid. I mean, it's next level stuff, man. It just is. And this guy was a waiver wire claim, not that long ago. And now many are suggesting he might be one of the best defensive defensemen in the league. Just how crazy is that? But big congrats. And a huge congratulations to Brad Marchand, of course, now his second Stanley Cup. So happy for him. And of course, so torn by that as a Bruins fan. This is a huge legacy win for him. And I'm just so happy now that other fan bases can see him and appreciate him for what he does out there on the ice, and instead of just hating him because he was a Bruin all those years. Um, but man, overall, the series started out looking like a real complete classic and just turned into an absolute uncompetitive dud of a series and just the opposite of what we saw last year. And listen, that's just what Florida can do, man. They can beat you that way, they can beat you this way, they can beat you any way they want to. So, um, crazy, crazy. But again, big congrats to the Florida Panthers. And now, of course, that leads us in directly into the off season. Already plenty of off-season activity going on around the league. We have Marchment heading off to Seattle from Dallas. Holla goes to Nashville from the Devils, and a number of players being re-signed, including Donato in Chicago. You get Duchesne, Bork, and Lundqvist in Dallas. Zetterland in Ottawa. Just to name a few. If you are looking for daily roster news and contract news, things like that, things I don't have time to get to every day, you got to go check out the Hockey Guy here on YouTube. Shannon does an absolutely amazing job, multiple videos a day, absolutely worth the follow. So go check him out. And it was yesterday we did get news from Boston that they have hired a new assistant coach to join Marco Sturm's staff. Steve Spott, I should say, joining the staff. Most recently, an assistant with the Dallas Stars, also been an assistant there in Vegas and in San Jose. And I did not look this up, but I do believe he was part of those Pete DeBoer staffs in each one of those stops. Not a bad thing. Those have been really good teams over the years under DeBoer. But, by all accounts, I think he should be a huge asset to the Bees specialty teams, which ranked 29th in the power play and 24th in the PK. Comparing that to Dallas, that was 17th in the power play and 4th in the PK a year ago. So nice piece of business done for the Bees coaching staff. You have, Leach and Kelly now Spott behind Marco Sturm. I am wildly interested to see what Sturm and this bench can do with not just this roster, but obviously what they're going to add here in the off season. So, good little piece of business done there, and we'll see how it looks. Of course, every year, I look at different targets that the Bruins, may go after. Of course, this year we've got, RFAs that are being talked about a lot because that's becoming a thing now that more claims might be put in. There's a lot of trade chatter out there. Potentially moving up in the draft kind of chatter around the team right now. But today, I'm just going to focus on unrestricted free agents. And I've got my top 10 list here with a couple of bonus guys here at the end that I want to spend a little more time talking about. And looking at cap space, the Bruins do have a bit of space here, 26.27 million, according to Puckpedia, fifth most in the league. So, I'd rather Sweeney not spend all that July 1st, like we typically do, but it is nice to know there's plenty of room to add talent here this summer. So let's kick this off. And this is in no particular order. This is just as the names kind of came to me and as I was looking things up here. So it's not like a 1 through 10 of my wish list, but it's just kind of, I think, just 10 targets. And, when we look at that, if we end up getting a couple of these guys, I think that's a big win. Number one on my list here, though, Brock Boeser from Vancouver. Boeser's 28 years old. Last year played in 75 games, 25 goals, 25 assists for 50 points. He's coming off a 3-year contract that paid him 6.65 per season. A player that Boston's been linked to, over the last few months as a potential target. I think he's going to be pretty popular out there. Hearing a little bit of chatter, maybe about Minnesota as well being in on him. But I think he could fit definitely in that top six and look quite good. Younger than I thought. When I saw he was 28, for whatever reason, I thought he was a little bit older, but I think he would fit in well and would be just another, Vancouver Boston exchange as we've seen here over the past couple of years. Another name that's going to be very high on a lot of people's lists is out of Winnipeg, left winger Nikolaj Ehlers. 29 years old. He played in 69 games last year, 24 goals, 39 assists for 63 points. He's coming off a 7-year contract that paid him $6 million per season. I know that Winnipeg would probably like to hang on to him. He's going to get a lot of attention. We'll see if Boston can get in on him. There has been some chatter around him, but he's one of those guys that he'll get a lot of phone calls. We have to remember this is a year where it's not a very deep free agent class when it comes to top six goal scorers. So, guys like Boeser, guys like Ehlers are going to attract a lot of attention. But very high on my list. I think he would look very, very good in a spoked B. Number 3 here on the list, center Jack Roslovic. 28 years old, played 81 games for Carolina last year, 22 goals, 17 assists for 39 points. Coming off just a 1-year, $2.8 million per year contract. I think he played very well under that contract. Is he somebody that Carolina hangs on to? They struggle with goal scoring. He kind of emerged last year for him a bit. We'll see, but I think center is a big time need on this team. And I think he could be, in that middle pack there, centers for us and could look good. Number 4, and I did check this today because there's been a lot of movement in Dallas over the last couple of days. But Mikael Granlund is a UFA right now out of Dallas, 33 years old, so a little bit older. Has the unique distinction of playing 83 games last year because he had the trade from San Jose to Dallas. 22 goals, 44 assists for 66 points. He's just now ending a 4-year contract that paid him $5 million per season. Of course, one of the Dallas assistants here now in Boston, but Dallas has moved a lot of things around lately with the Marchand move there to trading him out to Seattle. I think they're trying to open up money to keep him. So we'll see. Maybe he gets signed before, June 30th. But again, being that center, being that veteran type guy, if you're looking for a veteran presence at that center position, he could be a pretty good one to get. And, this probably will be at 33 years old, his last kind of major contract. I don't know if he gets more than 5 per year. I mean, those were good numbers last year. So, I could see I could see 6 to 7 million over a 3-year contract or something for him might make sense. We're going to move on to a few defensemen now that we may have to look at this year because we know Sweeney always likes to build up the D. And I think last year we saw how thin it was once McAvoy and Lindholm went down. It got very, very thin and very, very scary for the team. So let's go over a few defensemen. Recent Stanley Cup champion Aaron Ekblad from the Florida Panthers, 29 years old. Had some issues last year, had the suspension last year, so a little bit of dirt on his name, but played in 56 games, 3 goals, 30 assists for 33 points. He's just ending an 8-year contract that paid him $7.5 million per season. Right shot defenseman, and he's one of those big 3 there in Florida in terms of free agents. It's kind of on the fence as to what is going to happen. I think Bennett sticks around for sure. We'll talk about Marchand here in a moment. But Ekblad's the other one. And I think he would like to stay as a former number 1 overall draft pick and a big part of that team. We'll see. we'll see if money's there. I think he's going to have a ton of interest, and I think Florida's proven that they can lose, big time players and be all right. But Ekblad's a very solid, very stout defenseman, and you know, again, much like a lot of these guys could look really good in a spoke B, but he's going to get a lot of attention. And listen, if you're a Bruins fan, do you want him? Is the little bit of dirt that he had with the suspension, is that enough to kind of make you turn your nose up at him? Is it he's a Panther and you just kind of hate the guy because of what they've done to us the past couple of years? I don't know, but um, I think he's going to attract a lot of attention, and it'll be curious again to see if he is able to stick in Florida if they have the room. But I think he'll be very high on a lot of people's boards. Another defenseman out of Columbus, Ivan Provorov. And this might be a sneakier one here. 28 years old, played 82 games a year ago, 7 goals, 26 assists for 33 points. Coming off a 6-year contract that paid him 6.75 million per. He is a left shot defenseman and just another very solid guy, kind of playing in Columbus, so not a lot of attention out there over the past few years. But one I think the Bruins could very much be in on, and I think he'd be someone if you're going after Ekblad and you don't land him, and if Columbus isn't able to get Provorov done and keep him there, he's going to probably attract a lot of attention as well. Um, yeah, we'll see. We'll see. Number 7 on my board, a former Bruin here, defenseman Dmitry Orlov, 33 years old, 76 games last year for Carolina, had 6 goals, 22 assists for 28 points. Did get that 2-year contract, 7.75 million per. That's when he left Boston after being traded to the team from Washington. Kind of priced himself out of Boston. I wasn't shocked when he didn't sign here. He got a lot more money there. But I thought he fit in well with the Bruins when he played here. He was that kind of tough to play against kind of defenseman. And I think today, 2 years now removed, you can probably get him at a more reasonable, price. I don't think he's going to get 7.75 again. But if you at 33, if you get him for 2 years, 5.5, to come in and be kind of a middle, a middle pairing type of guy. I mean, you got to remember as Bruins fan, like Brandon Carlo's gone, right? We talk about McAvoy and Lindholm a lot, and by the time Carlo got traded, the season was over, so we didn't really pay much attention to it. But Carlo's a huge, huge missing piece now to this team. And okay, Lindholm comes back, McAvoy comes back, those guys are healthy. I mean, you're really missing something big there in Carlos. So I think one of these guys, like an Orlov, like a Provorov, could really come in and solidify that. And having had Orlov here in the past, knowing he fit in well at the time, I think he would look good. I think he would look good here. And again, I think he would be a little cheaper than what that price tag was a couple of years ago. Another defenseman that Boston was in on a few years back, Vladislav Gavrikov, 29 years old, coming out of the LA Kings. 82 games he played last year, 5 goals, 25 assists for 30 points. He's ending a 2-year contract that paid him 5.875 million per. It was, I want to say, 3 years ago when he was in Columbus and was a heavy trade chip. Boston was heavy in on him. LA ends up getting him. I think actually that's the same year that we traded for Orlov. So I think we didn't go Gavrikov, but we got Orlov. And you can correct me if I'm wrong there, but it was 2 or 3 years ago we were heavy in on him. And Sweeney tends to remember those things. Maybe he's a guy now that we can go after and get him off the free agent market. And even if you give him 2 years and 2 years, 6.5. Again, knowing that the cap is going up, that could be a pretty nice player to slide in there into your middle pairing situation there on the blue line. Going back to some forwards, we've got one out of Vegas to take a look at. Victor Olofsson, 29-year-old player here, playing for Bruce Cassidy last year. 56 games for him, 15 goals, 14 assists for 29 points. Had just a 1-year contract, $1.075 million per season player. I think he came out of Buffalo, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, again, could be a guy that could fit into some of your middle lines, give you a little bit of a scoring punch, and isn't going to cost you the boat, right? He's probably at 29. He's probably looking for a multi-year deal coming off you got to remember only 56 games, 29 points. So a little over half a point per game type of guy. I could see a multi-year deal for him, maybe in the three range. Maybe he gets two and a half. Man, who knows? Maybe somebody overpays and goes four and a half on him. But another player, again, a little bit lower down the list, not a guy that's going to give you 40 goals, but you need guys like this that are going to be in that 15 to 20 goal range. And that's a big part of what Boston was missing last year. So yeah, we'll see where he ends up. I think he'll be another fairly popular name out there. And again, one that maybe Vegas does try to get done and keep him in house. Another little lesser known player, center Luke Kunin. And this is a player I talked about last year a couple of times, 27 years old, was traded from San Jose to Columbus last season. But in those two stops, 75 games, 11 goals, 7 assists for 18 points, just coming out the 1 year contract, 2.75 million per season. I've always liked this guy. Something about his game, just kind of a steady Eddie out there. I think he'd be a very nice third line type of center for the Bruins. He'll be very affordable, and I do think he's the type of player you can mix and match in various lines and various combinations, and could be a little bit of a switch army knife for you. And just kind of a low risk, high reward, low risk, high reward type of guy, in my opinion. I do. So that's my top 10. And I know you're all going to say, wait a minute, you didn't bring up Brad Marchand. And wait a minute, you didn't even bring up a couple of the top free agents out there, a la Mitch Marner, right? We're going to talk about him. And we're going to talk about Brad Marchand right now because I've got some thoughts on it. The internet's a buzz about where's he going to end up and how much more money is he going to make after that run there to the Stanley Cup. But 37 years old, of course, played in 71 games last year between Boston and Florida. 23 goals, 28 assists for 51 points. His 8 year contract expiring, 6.125 million per. Clearly, I think going to get a pay raise from here. And for the record, my opinion, I highly, highly doubt we see a return to Boston for a couple of reasons, right? First of all, he may have priced himself out after that playoff performance, especially when you think he had already kind of priced himself out before the trade and where negotiations were not really working, right? Um, and I think he just got another taste of winning. And we'll have plenty of other suitors closer to the cup with probably bigger offers than what Boston will be willing to make. So, a couple of areas that maybe could pull him back to Boston if he does happen to come back, family. His family been here a long time, right? Do they want to stay in Boston? They did not travel to Florida with him when he made the trade. They stayed home. So I think family and where they want to end up as a group will play a huge role in his decision. Now, there's a lot of other wonderful places around the country you can go and live, and given the money he'll be making, they'll be certainly in some good neighborhoods. So, sky's the limit. But I do think in this situation where listen, Brad's made the money, he's won. I think family is probably going to be a big, big priority here. Second thing that might draw him back, and again, I don't think he comes back, but does Marco Sturm have any impact on Brad, right? They were teammates for a short time, and Sturm has remained very, very close to Patrice Bergeron over the years. And of course, Brad is very close to Patrice as well. I might be pulling at some strings here, but my guess if he were to come back to Boston, those could be some of the reasons why. But end of the day, I'll be shocked if he comes back and very sad about that. But listen, you're hearing a lot of chatter about right now the New Jersey Devils being in. We know that the LA Kings were high on him and I think had made some offers to Boston at the trade deadline. So if he wants to go west, that could be an option. I've always thought, why not Vegas? Man, go back and go play with Bruce Cassidy and that team. I could see him looking really sharp in a Vegas Golden Knights uniform. And of course, there's always the Toronto play. Well, would he go to Toronto? I personally don't see it, but I don't think he's closed the door on anything. So he's going to be one to watch. And yeah, he could certainly end up back in Florida. I kind of don't think he ends up in Florida still. I know there's a lot of things going around the internet right now about that. I think once Florida gets Bennett done, they're probably going to try to get Ekblad done. Again, Brad may have just priced himself out, and there could be more lucrative offers out there. But Again, he got that taste of winning. He seemed to look and fit really nice into their lineup and into their style of play. It just really, really worked. So, yeah, it's going to be fun to watch July 1st and see where he ends up. And of course, we've got to talk about Mitch Marner from the Toronto Maple Leafs. I have not forgotten about him. I promise you. I did save him for last because I do have some thoughts here. 28-year-old player, 81 games last year for the Maple Leafs, 27 goals, 75 assists for 102 points with Toronto, ending a 6-year contract that paid him 10.901, $333 million per season. Listen, all 32 teams are going to be calling Marner, including Toronto, without question, right? He's the top UFA on the market. And like I said before, this is not a market overwhelmed with top six forwards out there. I believe he's as good as gone in Toronto, and I felt that for a long time. That he's just not going to be back there. Top candidates that I've been looking at, I look at Utah, I look at Vegas, I look at the Chicago Blackhawks and maybe the LA Kings as maybe the top candidates for Marner. Yes, he would look amazing in a spoke B, and I think it would just look amazing with him out there running with Costa and the rest of that team. And I would have zero problem with the Bruins backing up the Brink truck to sign him. Zero problems with that. But I don't think, and it's just my guess, that he has any interest in playing for an Atlantic Division team. When you can potentially go to places like Vegas or team up with Bedard, with another Original Six team, or go to Utah and maybe be the guy, in the face of the franchise, there's going to be plenty of allure in many other places beyond Boston and beyond the Atlantic Division. Of course, the narrative is that Marner is only a great regular season player and falls off in the playoffs, right? That's been the narrative forever. Okay, so, show me a current Maple Leaf player that has elevated his game in the playoff and helped them win. Show me that player. I'll wait. Yeah, I mean, I just think this whole I Marner's only good in the regular season and bad in the playoffs. It's just a tired argument for me. I don't think he's played much worse than many other star players for the Leafs over these playoff runs. Let's read off these stats here. Mitch has 70 career playoff games, 13 goals, 50 assists for 63 points, and a +9. Matthews, 68 career games with 59 points. Nylander, 67 playoff games and 58 points. Tavares, 75 playoff games and 53 points. But sure, okay, it's all Marner's fault. Like he's got the most points out of any of those guys in his playoff career. So just stop with the Marner's not a playoff performer nonsense. I'm tired of that argument. I'll take him on my team any day of the week. Do the Bruins have room for him? They absolutely do. Do they have need for him? They absolutely do. Do you see Mitch Marner signing with the Toronto Maple Leafs, one of their chief rivals? I don't. I just don't see it happening. I hope I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong. I hope I'm so wrong on this, but I do feel like he's probably heading out west. And I think that, like I said, there's a lot of really good, alluring places for him to go that are going to pay him as much, if not more, than he would make in Boston. So that's what we have there for our kind of UFA list. Like I say, if we end up with 2 or 3 of those guys off the list, that should make for a very fun July and some good building blocks for the future. And speaking of building blocks, let's take a quick look at the Bruins ECHL affiliate, the Maine Mariners. They did complete a futures trade yesterday with the Allen Americans acquiring the rights to forward Liam Gorman. This completes an earlier deal, which sent forward Aidan McDonald to the Americans. So all these future deals in the ECHL had to be wrapped up. I believe it was yesterday. So you did see a lot of activity throughout the league. Gorman's a 6'3", 25-year-old player out of Arlington, Massachusetts. Spent 62 games with the Americans last season. His first pro season, 6 goals, 11 assists for 17 points. College years were split between Princeton and UMass, where he combined for 119 games, 17 goals, 23 assists, and 40 points. So welcome in, Liam. Will be fun to watch you here in Portland this season, assuming they get him signed. It is just a rights deal at this point. So we will be getting a lot more Maine Mariner roster updates and news as players can start signing here by June 23rd. Keeley had his press release yesterday talking about this trade and breaking out all the different dates and things that go along with free agency around the ECHL. So you can go check that out. I'll leave the link to that article here in the video. Listen, guys, the sun is out. It's Saturday morning. I'm going to get myself outside and enjoy some of this warm weather. Thank you so much for watching and listening. If you do like what you're hearing here, please don't forget to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button down below. And until next time, everybody, be kind, show love, and God bless.